Welcome to the Botany Bistro, where we're serving up bite-sized botany for you to munch on as you savor the science of plants. I'm Mary, and I'll be your botanist. Today's menu includes an exploration of plants in the Crassulaceae family. Here's a riddle for you. What do ghosts, panda ears, and hens and chicks all have in common? If you said that they're all members of the Crassulaceae plant family, you'd be right. While you might not immediately recognize the name of the plant family Crassulaceae, you have definitely seen these plants in grocery stores, greenhouses, nurseries, your friend's bookshelf. They're just all over. We really appreciate plants in this family as houseplants and outdoors in our gardens as well. A common name for this plant family are the stone crops. So, I'm paying a little bit of homage with the stone wall behind me today. These plants are characterized by their drought resistance, which includes their very unique photosynthetic pathway and their ability to withstand very challenging gardening conditions. We have a beautiful set of sedums on our green roof, and they, with very little inputs from me, bloom and hold on to that soil on the roof, also helping moderate the temperature in the building below. So they're very hardworking plants. The Crassulaceae family consists of about 35 genera and about 1,400 species. It is mainly distributed across dry, rocky, or mountainous regions, including Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Americas. A native sedum that we have here in Ohio is called Sedum ternatum, and I've actually used this little plant as a ground cover in a tricky spot to garden. Something that we all really enjoy about plants in the Crassulaceae family is the ability that they have to be able to propagate from a very small part of just a leaf. This is a result of the totipotency aspects of the plants in this family. You can just take one leaf, put it in contact with soil, and in a few weeks you'll be getting new roots and you can grow an entirely new plant from just that one part. So what makes plants in the Crassulaceae so special? Well, they have a whole photosynthetic pathway dedicated to their plant family name. The Crassulacean acid metabolism, or CAM for short. CAM photosynthesis is a unique way that these plants have adapted to live in challenging environments. CAM photosynthesis is a specialized pathway that allows plants to maximize water conservation while still conducting photosynthesis. This adaptation is particularly crucial for plants in arid, semi-arid, and epiphytic environments, where water loss through transpiration is a major concern. Photosynthesis that is prevalent in plants that have reliable moisture in their ecosystems we call C3, and then we have another type of photosynthesis called C4, and then this CAM photosynthesis is yet a third pathway. Plants that utilize C3 photosynthesis will have their stomata open during the day as they're photosynthesizing so that they are able to complete gas exchange for that critical process. However, having their stomata open during the day really creates an issue where you can lose a lot of water through transpiration. So as that water evaporates out of your leaves, you could actually become so desiccated as a plant that you would not be able to survive. CAM photosynthesis is a solution to this problem. It allows plants to fix carbon dioxide at night when the temperatures are cooler and the humidity is a little bit higher, which can reduce the overall water loss of the plant. CAM photosynthesis is divided into 4 distinct phases that separate carbon fixation and sugar production over a 24-hour cycle. CAM plants lose only 10% of the water per unit of CO2 gained compared to C3 plants. This allows CAM plants to thrive in deserts, dry rocky habitats, and as epiphytes. Also, these plants store CO2 overnight, which ensures a steady supply for daytime. We have other plant families that also have species that utilize CAM photosynthesis. That includes the Cactaceae, the Orchidaceae, and the Bromeliaceae. So you might wonder, why don't all plants use CAM photosynthesis? Well, there are some drawbacks. C3 photosynthesis really is going to be more efficient in cooler and wetter climates. But CAM photosynthesis makes it possible for these plants to survive in hot, dry desert environments. C3 plants also can directly use CO2 without any extra energy cost. For our C3 plants, if they are caught in a drought situation, they can really struggle because their stomata are going to be open during the day when they are going to be transpiring and losing more water. Sometimes those stomatas can close prematurely, but that also cuts the plant off from being able to absorb CO2 due to the specialization of the CAM photosynthetic pathway and some of the drawbacks that it may present for plants. It does typically dictate that they grow a little bit slower than a C3 or a C4 plant. And so we can appreciate their small stature and their slow growth. I mentioned a few names at the beginning of the bistro. One of them were hens and chicks. And hens and chicks happens to be one of my friend's very favorite plants. She's got these tucked all over little corners of her garden. She has one of these beautiful little pots that has all these little holes in it that the little hens and chicks just kind of spill out of. Romans are responsible for spreading these around Western Europe. There was a belief that hens and chicks protected against lightning, developed from the apparent resemblance of the plants to the god Jupiter. They're wonderful for green roofs, shallow areas, rocky areas. There are so many different types of kalanchoes, and you probably are familiar with one or two of them. There are some common houseplant varieties that have orange blooms, sometimes yellow or pink. This one is a little fuzzy, and it is commonly referred to as panda plants or panda ears. That fur on it, that fuzziness, really helps the plant with sunscreen, and it's a deterrent from things trying to get a bite out of it. Thirsty critters in that environment might be tempted to take a little nibble, and so that's one way that this plant is able to protect itself, is with all of that fuzz. There is a kalanchoe that I will caution you against having in your home, though, and that is called Mother of Thousands. This plant produces little plantlets at the tips of its leaves, and these clones will just fall all over and plant themselves in your other house plants or in your garden if you've got it outside. They'll roll around and get into your vents, and we had a problem with one of these plants growing out of the sink of the greenhouse that I worked at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and that was a big issue. So it's also very toxic, and so if you've got little ones around or furry friends, then you want to make sure that you are keeping this plant contained, or maybe just skip it altogether. Does look really neat, but this is one that can get quite unruly very quickly. They are not joking when they call it Mother of Thousands. And ghost plants. This one was just so beautiful. I just came back from a visit to my friend in Florida, and she had this beautiful little plant sitting on her porch. I really like how it has this kind of dusty blue hue to it. It does seem a little bit ghostly, especially when you're kind of interspersing it with other plants, maybe on your windowsill. It gives off a really neat texture, really neat aesthetic. One of the most commonly known plants in the Crassulaceae family is probably the jade. So jade plants have been very popular for many years. They have different varieties of jade plants, but I can usually tell a characteristic jade plant from its trunk, those little sections, and then the leaves. And maybe it's because this was one of the first plants that I, with confidence, was able to diagnose as terminal for a friend. And so, help me with my plant, like so many people do. And she brought this out, and I could tell right away that the stem of this plant had gotten very mushy and was not going to be able to support the weight of that plant for very long. And so I was early in my botanical career, but I remember that very clearly, that was my first terminal patient. And she ended up taking a cutting off of it. Jades are a wonderful plant, a gift that keeps on giving. I have been very impressed with a group of jade plants that I have admired from afar for many years. I've been passing by this particular coffee shop on my way to work, and these beautiful jades are pressed right up against these windows. I finally got in there today, actually, for the first time being inside, and I was able to ask how they take care of them. Not a lot of big secrets there. They just water them once a week. And these plants are 40 years old. The person that was working behind the counter made the point to remind me that smoking indoors was common, not that long ago. And so these little plants have survived that. They survived these very cold windows. They seem very, very happy. While I was doing research for this episode, I was surprised to find that there is a plant in the Crassulaceae family that shares my last name. So my last name is Dudley, and there's a Dudleya, this little beautiful, dusty, white-looking, ethereal plant. I might start looking for this one so that I can put a Dudleya on my shelf. So just a word about how you could enjoy more of these plants in your home or in your community. You can definitely do a little potting up of these plants. This is a single leaf that I have placed on some soil. I've made it good contact with the soil here, and it's nice damp soil. It's just starting to put out some little roots. It won't be too long until I'm able to have an entirely new plant from just this little one. And so I'll show you how to do that now. I've got my plant here, and I want the bottom of this leaf. So I want to make sure that I am getting to the bottom of where the leaf is attached to the stem, because that's where I'm going to have the most undifferentiated cells, right there at that node. And so I want that node to be in contact with the soil so that it can start to trigger the process that it needs to do in order to make roots. So I'm going to just make sure that I'm getting a nice healthy leaf. And so I'm going to wiggle it around a little bit because I really do want to make sure that I'm getting it right at that base. So I've just removed this little leaf here, and I've got this. And then I have my little pot, and I've already got one in here, but it can have a friend, that's fine. Now you can also choose to let these callus for a few hours. I don't think that that is strictly necessary with this particular species that I have, but do your research and find out whether or not your plant would need that. I'm going to make sure it has nice contact with the soil, and then I'm going to be patient. And I'm going to make sure that it stays a little bit moist, not wet, not drippy, and I'm going to watch and wait for those little roots. And as they emerge, after I start to grow a new plant, I'll be able to separate that out, and I can put it into a different pot, and I can continue to use this for little cuttings in the future. We are very grateful to the plants in the Crassulaceae family for letting us give away so many new plants and make so many friends along the way. I'd like to send a big thank you to our friends at Cincinnati State for letting us film in their greenhouse, and also to all the folks who have taught me so much about plants in the Crassulaceae family throughout my career. We are so grateful that you took time to join us on the Botany Bistro today. Stay tuned for more Bistro to go.